know, back in the days when the Ku Klux Klan was an organization that actually lynched a lot of Black people, went after Jews as well, a racist, white racist organization. Back in the days, which was called their heyday, they never showed their faces. They wore huge hoods and faces, masks over their faces, so no one could see what they were doing, because clearly they were going against the law. They didn't want to have to be responsible for the chaos and trauma that they were enacting, and so they hid behind their hoods. But nowadays, you see people with the same beliefs, this white supremacy movement. They don't wear masks over their faces anymore. They've been emboldened in a way that the Klan never was. They have come to perhaps deny that there should be any limits on them at all. That you see, if you're in with us, you're okay. You don't have to answer to anybody, no law, and certainly not to the divine. Or some would say they are the divine. Now, of course, they are at some deep level, but not the level from which they're coming when they're doing these things. So this is a time where you really need your best discernment. And may I suggest, my dear friends, please don't leave it all to the spiritual teachers or the spiritual plane, because certain things won't happen. We are not physically in the world. You are. You are the ones inheriting the Aquarian age. You must be worthy of it. And so don't go into a state of denial and thinking you have no responsibility for getting us there. Or I say us, I'm not embodied right now, but I'm certainly a part of protecting Earth. And yet I don't do it in the way some of you attribute me to doing it. You see, this realizing of any new age is incumbent upon the people who will inherit it. You must decide what you want. You must bring it to fruition. Indeed, you must love it into existence. Now, there was a time months ago where the world was very close to a nuclear attack. And basically, it was between Iran and the US. And I mentioned one time that the spiritual plane intervened. And some went so far as to think, oh, they pulled the detonating devices out of all the bombs that would have gone off. Well, that's hogwash or foolishness. No, we tried to implant ideas into those who would listen, the minds of those who would listen. And it just so happened that when that confrontation came up, the ones who were more open to hearing from the spiritual plan just happened to be in Iran. Not so much. There were other checks and balances on those who would get activated from the US side. But frankly, I felt quite helpless to influence anybody on the side of the US. There were those who were sure they did not want this, and they were in high places, and they operated off their own notions of how can we quell this crazy force that's arising now that maybe is going to take us to a very costly situation. And yet it was, believe it or not, two people in Iran with some power who were able to hear the voices of the spiritual teachers, maybe not like you are hearing me today, but they were the ones who really pulled back. And it's very interesting to see what people think I do with my time. I don't block you from the effects of your karma. I don't block the world from the effects of its collective karma. I try to intervene by planting ideas and offering grace to all who will receive and accept them. Other than that, this is your experience. And we are not really, I don't want to say allowed, but the way the plan works is if we create the new age and just give it to you, you won't have earned it. It won't be yours. You will have, what is that phrase they say? You won't have any skin in the game. I know that's some colloquialisms here in the US, but it's kind of, it makes the point pretty well, doesn't it? Having skin in the game, having invested some part of yourself in the game. And that's what I want to ask you to do. I want you to do it with your meditation practice, because right now, that's what you have. Most of you are not in the place where you can step in front of a bomb that's about to go off at the Capitol or at the headquarters of the Democratic Party or even the Republican Party. You're not really able to step in front of that, give yourself and save people. A lot of people fantasize about those kinds of things, but it's not very practical. And indeed, that kind of fantasizing is more, tends to be more of the same. It's a vengeance kind of thing. We have to get rid of vengeance because, you see, it really hasn't served us very well as a planet, has it? It's been around forever, of course, but it hasn't really served humanity all that well. What the Aquarian age is about, my dear friends, is moving out of that notion that might makes right. It doesn't. The fact that might is there, that someone is able to take power in a situation and hurt others, it's usually the power to hurt. It's very seldom the power to uplift. And if we really are to realize the possibilities of the Aquarian age, we have to install this idea rather than power over, I will make you believe the way I want you to believe. That's outdated, my friends. We must have power for those who are hungry, those who are without any resources or opportunities, to uplift them, to bring them to a higher par on the playing field of life. Now, no one of you can do that for the world, of course. But that should be your motivation as you enter this new age. And I'm going to ask you to bring everything you have into this moment of service. I'm going to ask you to put everything you have into gaining your enlightenment. Even your meditation practice, I'm going to ask you to bring everything you have to every sitting, every walking meditation, every moment where you shift your focus away from the I and into something bigger. And I'm going to ask you to have a purpose for that. I'm going to ask you to recognize that there is a value to the greater scenario in your awakening. Even in your meditation, there is a value to something that is much bigger than yourself. And you see, that is what we want to move out of, that old paradigm where if I keep working for myself, getting what I want, taking this, taking that, you know, it just doesn't work. And it breeds this idea that what's good for me is bad for somebody else, because that is the way the might makes right law has been interpreted. We have to do away with that, my friends.